Hello, and welcome to my channel, Knotty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah, and you can find me as Knotty Gnome on Instagram. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me today, and it's time for another Friday Sews. First of all, I would really like to apologize if you've been watching my channel and having audio issues. I bought a microphone for my camera and I'm still trying to work out the settings, so I'm really sorry that things have been wonky. I try to record things and play them back on my phone and it sounds fine, but then when I upload the video to YouTube, there's all these issues, and so I am trying to work those out, and I really appreciate your patience. I just would like to apologize for that. But okay, so before we get started on today's video, I will share that I am wearing a dress that I made. It's a McCall's pattern. I can't remember the number, but I will put it up on the screen. And this is never going to be my favorite dress because I don't really like these flutter sleeves, but it is a cotton spandex jersey and it's super comfortable to wear, and I also really love this print, so I have worn this a few times. So for today's edition of Friday Sews, I have 3 finished garments to cover with you. One of them was a fail and the other 2 I absolutely love. So let's just start off with the fail. I cut out Simplicity 9142, which is this tiered dress with a shirred bodice, and I used about 4 yards of 100% black linen that I got from Joann.com, and I showed this off in my haul last week from my previous Friday Sews, and I will link that up above in case you missed it. Now, I did deviate from the instructions. This bodice is not actually shirred. It's made by applying bias tape to the interior or on the wrong side of the bodice, and then you're supposed to thread 1/4 inch elastic through the bodice, but a bunch of the posts on Instagram said that that made the bodice really stiff, and I just didn't really want to do that, and so I shirred the bodice with elastic thread instead. For the sizing details, I made my normal size 8, which is the size I usually do for big 4 patterns, and I did shorten the dress by 3 inches. So what I did for that is there are 3 main pieces to this garment. This is all one piece, and then you have the first tier and the second tier. And I just removed 1 inch out of each of those pieces for a total of 3 inches. Now the reason that this dress is a fail is one of those things where, like, you know, like in the back of your brain when your brain is telling you, like, I don't think this is really gonna work, but then you just plow ahead and do it anyway. And my main source of unease with this pattern is that it did take me 4 yards. It was supposed to take 4 yards and 4 5/8 yards, but because I did shorten it 3 inches, that I used a little bit less fabric, but still, it's a sleeveless dress that uses 4 yards of fabric. And basically for me, anything over 3.5 yards for a dress is just a lot. I know that there are dress patterns out there that call for 5, 6, 7 yards of fabric, and for those of you who can pull that off, like, more power to you, but I just feel like if I'm wearing a dress with that much fabric, I'm just going to be weighed down by it. And that is actually, in fact, what happened with this. So both the back and the front are exactly the same. So you've got the bodice pieces, and then, like I said, I did elastic shirring with thread. So here's the back side. You probably can't really see it, but that's elastic thread there. And then you attach the 2 tiers. This middle tier here has 4 panels, and the bottom tier has 6 panels, and that's where all the volume comes in. It's just very, very wide at the bottom. So I made the dress, and when I tried it on, it was just way too loose and floppy in the bodice. But I expected that because when I made the Victory Patterns Sophia out of linen, it did the same thing, and I ended up having to wash and dry the garment a couple of times for the shirring to kind of scrunch up, and then it fit properly. So I figured this would be the same way. So I threw this in a couple different wash and dryer cycles. I ended up washing it once with a load of blankets, so it's like all fuzzy and stuff, so I'm sorry if you see like lint and everything, but that's just what I had to do because I was trying to shrink it up. So the shirring portion did shrink up. However, because there's so much fabric in the skirt, it basically pulls on the bodice, and it kind of like splays out in a really unattractive way, and it's still pretty loose around the bodice, even though it does kind of shrink up on my body. The weight of the skirt just makes it a little bit wavy, and like it just doesn't fit well. And I will insert some pictures of me wearing the dress. I know it's black, so you're not gonna be able to see a ton of detail, but hopefully you can get the idea of the way that it looks. To me, it looks very maternity because there's just so much volume of fabric like underneath in the stomach area. And I'm also just in danger of like flashing because it just, when you move, the skirt is like pulling the bodice even more, and it kind of just like droops and droops and droops. Also, the strap length is way too long for me. Like I should go back in and shorten the straps a lot, because I ended up having to tie them so tight to try to hold the bodice up on my body that the straps themselves end up being way, way, way too long. So this dress is pretty much a fail. If I had it to do all over again, I would eliminate some of the pieces of fabric. Like in the middle tier, instead of 4 panels, I think I would just do 3. And in the bottom tier where there's 6, I would probably do 4. And then that would just eliminate some of that weight that's pulling down on the dress. The way that it is, I just don't think that it's wearable. However, I am pretty happy. Like I think I have a solution that's going to like salvage this piece, and that is that I'm going to cut it into a top and a skirt, because there's plenty of fabric here, and the shirring does shrink up enough that I do think it would be tight to the body if it didn't have the skirt dragging it down. So I was thinking if I just trim the bodice, maybe leave like an inch or an inch and a half, ruffle underneath the bodice here, and just have like a tiny little peplum or something, like hem that, and then shorten the straps, and then I should have like a pull-on like sleeveless top that would, I think it would fit perfectly fine without the weight of the skirt dragging it down. And then for the remaining skirt, I do have a little bit extra of this fabric, so I could make a separate waistband piece, or if there's enough fabric, I could just fold over the top of the waist and insert some pretty heavy duty elastic. I think if I used like 2-inch elastic, I think that would be enough to bear the weight of the skirt to hold it on my body. And then I could just have a little matching set, or I could wear them separately. And I think that I am going to do that because it's black, it goes with everything. I could totally wear them as separates. And then that way I don't have to waste 4 yards of fabric that I purchased. Oh, I forgot to add, I did actually add inseam pockets. The pattern doesn't have pockets, but I actually have just a little, teardrop pocket shape that I traced off a while ago, and I just keep it at my sewing table so that if anything ever doesn't have pockets and I want to add them, I just go ahead and use that pattern piece to add it. So I added inseam pockets, and yeah, so I think if I separate the two and I just have like a broomstick style skirt with an elastic waist and then the separate top, that I will be much happier with that. I think it'll be way more wearable, and that is what I am planning to do with Simplicity 9141. So now that we've gotten the negative out of the way, let's talk about the positive. So the next thing that I cut out after I finished the Simplicity dress is the Friday Pattern Company Saltwater slip. When I saw this pattern released, I knew I immediately wanted to make it. It's just the perfect, easy, simple slip dress. I've been wanting to make a basic black slip dress in a midi length forever. So I bought the pattern, put it together. I cut out the size extra small, and I used this black rayon dobby fabric that I had as a leftover that I got from fabric.com. I used a little bit of this fabric in a blouse, but I had probably roughly 1 3/4 yards left to make this dress. So as far as pattern alterations go, I did shorten the dress by 5.5 inches. I took 3.5 inches out above the slit, and then I took an additional 2 inches out below the slit. And the main reason I broke it up like that was to ensure that the side slits were in the location where I wanted them to be, which was about mid-thigh. And I was able to squeeze this out of my roughly 1 3/4 yards of fabric. However, I did have to cut about 1.5 inches off of the strap pieces, because a lot of pieces, these little strap pieces are cut on the bias, and this piece here in particular is two really long pieces, and I just couldn't fit them on the fabric that I had available. So they were 1.5 inches shorter than they were supposed to be, but that ended up not mattering at all, and I will get to that in a second. I ordered these bra fixings from Amazon, and they're in a gold color, which I think just adds a really pretty, like, special touch to it. I did add the waist ties, and I'm really glad that I did that, because I think that the shaping it provides is really nice and, like, pretty necessary for me. The fit of this is really good, but I will say that it's just a little bit tight in the hips. When I looked at the finished garment measurements, it was going to give me 2 inches of ease in the hip, and I did think at the time that that might not quite be enough for me to be comfortable. However, I believe the next size up was like 4 inches of ease in the hip, which I thought was too much, so I just went with the straight size extra small. If I were to make this again in the future, I think I would just go ahead and add a 1/4 inch on both the front and the back of the side seams for the hip, just to give myself 1 more inch of ease in that area, and I think I would be just a little bit more comfortable. It's not bad the way that it is, it's just for my personal comfort, I would like to have just a little bit more room in the hip area. Other than that, the fit is really good. The dress was super easy and simple to put together. I did watch the Friday Pattern Company Saltwater Slips Sew Along video, and I mean, I don't think I really needed it because the instructions by themselves are super clear, but certainly it was a nice benefit to have that video available, and if you are new to sewing, I definitely think that it would be useful to go ahead and watch the sew along if you're planning to make this. Now, I did have some issues with these straps. So you're supposed to, like I said, these straps are just one really, really long, extra long piece cut on the bias. There's actually 2 pieces, and you join it together into one really, really long piece. And then you attach it on the center back, and then they extend out to become the straps, and then you stitch them down to the front. So before you actually create the straps, you're supposed to trim them to 20 inches. So I did that, and that is how I learned that the strap pieces are actually extra long. They're longer than you need them to be. So even cutting them a little bit shorter, not having enough fabric, that ended up not mattering, because I did end up trimming the straps to the 20 inches that you're supposed to do for this adjustable strap length. So that was not an issue. But when I attached the straps and put them on, they were just way too long. I had to keep adjusting this slider forward, like, more and more and more, until this little gold slider part was actually, like, right here on the front of the dress, and that made it like the proper length for my body. And so that obviously looks weird, like this part is supposed to be on the back of your body. So I ended up unattaching the straps, like ripping that part out, cutting 6 inches off of the strap, and then reattaching it. And now it's actually in the proper length for me. These hardware parts are on the back part of my shoulder, so it fits properly. So that's just one thing. If you're gonna make this dress, and especially if you're petite, like, check the strap length before you actually commit to sewing it down, because it might be way, way, way too long. The other thing that I think I might do in the future is that this loop part here is actually pretty long. At least on me, it kind of comes like halfway up from like the end of the dress and my shoulder. And so I think that if I shortened it, made it so that it's more like this is where it started, then this strap part could be longer and it would look more proportional, if that makes any sense. I will be inserting some pictures of me wearing this dress, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see enough detail to see where the straps were. I took the pictures before I actually went back and fixed the straps. But at any rate, I fixed it now. It's perfect the way that it is now. I love this dress. I think that I'm going to be wearing it so much. Normally when I make dresses, I only ever make one version of it because, there's so many dress patterns out there, and I think to myself, why am I going to keep making the same dress over and over again? However, I think that this dress is an exception because it's just so simple and basic. I really could see myself making additional dresses. And the other epiphany that I had that I think is a really good idea is I want to trace the pattern and make a cami length of this, because this dress, even with the bias cut straps, it uses so little fabric. I think that the shorter, like above the knee version of the dress in my size takes like a yard of fabric. So if I cut it even shorter and made it into a cami top, that would obviously take even less fabric. And I think that that would be an excellent scrap buster. If I, have leftovers, decent sized leftovers from making something, I could just kind of quickly cut out a cami and sew that up, and I think that that would be an excellent, wonderful basic to have in your wardrobe, just a variety of these cami style tops, because something like the Ogden cami, like even that is partially lined, so there's more fabric and there's more steps involved, whereas sewing this is like super, super quick and easy. The hardest part is just making the adjustable straps, and honestly, you don't even really have to do that unless you want to. So yeah, I think that making this into a top and just having it, kind of nearby whenever I have scraps is an excellent idea, and one that I will definitely be utilizing in the future. So the final finished thing I have to talk about this week is for an Instagram challenge, and I am so sorry, but I can't remember the exact name of the challenge or who the hosts are, so I'm just going to put them up on the screen rather than try to botch it right now. But basically there's an Instagram challenge that is all about recreating a look from an inspiration that you've seen, whether it's ready to wear or on another sewist or fashion blogger or whatever. And I had talked about this before, that I had seen a pair of shorts that Talisha from Creativity by T had made, this pair of ruffle shorts that were just really cute. And then kind of maybe a couple days later, I saw on one of my favorite fashion bloggers a pair of shorts from Cezanne that had a little ruffle at the bottom. They were really, really cute, and I'll put in a picture from the Cezanne website so you can see what those shorts look like. And the thing that really intrigued me about these shorts is that they were made out of a really lightweight, delicate fabric. And I know this might sound weird, but for whatever reason, I have never worn or made shorts that aren't in a bottom weight fabric. Like, just when I think of shorts, I think of denim shorts or twill or canvas, or just something that's a heavier weight. It just never even occurred to me that you could make shorts out of a lightweight drapey fabric. But I really liked the look of these almost like culotte type ruffle shorts, because they look like a skirt, like a mini skirt. So I was just super inspired and intrigued by that idea. So I picked up the Mimi G pattern from Simplicity 8558 to use as my base pattern, and I was working with these shorts here. Now, as you can see, these are knee-length shorts, so I had to do some alterations to achieve the look that I was going for. So I made the size 8 at the waist, and I graded to a 10 at the hip. And normally I have to do a lot of work to the crotch curve to make it fit my shape. However, because these are such a wide leg culotte style short, and they actually have a dropped crotch, when I make a new pattern, I cut out all the pieces, and then I do a quick tissue fit. I don't do it the right way you're supposed to do it, but I just pin the main pieces together at the seam allowances, and then I kind of hold it up to my body to check, and this is every pattern, to check, things like, is the bodice in the correct length? What is the overall length? How much do I need to shorten it? Where does it fall on my body? Just those kind of rough little checks that I can make some adjustments before I even cut out my fabric. So for this pair, when I did that quick little tissue fit check, I realized that the crotch is dropped really low, way below your actual crotch. So I figured that because there's such a wide leg with the dropped crotch, I wouldn't have to alter the shape at all. It should fit the way that it is, because there's so much ease in the hip area. And I turned out to be totally right about that, so I was really happy that that worked out. So what I did to alter the bottom of the shorts to get them the way that I wanted was I traced out the shorts pattern piece, and I think the original shorts had a 1.5 inch hem, so I drew a line up from that at the 1.5 inch mark, so I could see where the actual hem line was, the original one. And then I measured up 3.5 inches from that seam line, drew a new line, so that it respected the integrity of the curve, because the pattern piece isn't just straight across, it has like a very gentle sloping curve. So I had my 3.5 inches above, and then I added 5/8 of an inch seam allowance to that to get my new cutting line. I hope that makes sense. And then for the ruffle, what I did was I measured the circumference of the leg on both the front and the back, obviously. Then I multiplied that by 1.5 in order to get my ruffle length, because I wanted it to be ruffly but not too ruffly, so I figured 1.5 times the width was a good level of ruffle for my taste. And then for the length of the ruffle, I wanted it to fold it in half so that I wouldn't have to hem it. So I was going to need 2 times the finished height. And so I wanted the finished height to be 1 inch. So that's 2 inches because it's folded in half, plus a 5/8 inch seam allowance on both sides. So that's another 1.25 inches, which means that I cut my long ruffle strips roughly 46 inches by 3.25 inches. And I made 2 of those. And then all I did was I just pressed the ruffle piece in half and then gathered it and attached it to the hem of the shorts. So these were even like super easy because I didn't even have to hem the ends, which was wonderful. They do have side seam pockets that are anchored into the waist seam, as you can see here, so they stay on the front of the body, which is really nice. And then the only other thing that I did differently than the pattern instructions said was the pattern wants you to use 3 skinny pieces of elastic, and I had tried that once and I just hated it. It was like the worst experience of my life and I don't want to repeat it. So instead of, and the original also has a drawstring. You can see that here. It has like a fabric drawstring, and I didn't want that for these because they're a little bit dressy. I didn't really want the casualness of the drawstring. So what I did instead was I just inserted 2-inch elastic, and then I stitched over the elastic 3 times. So it has the same look as the original with these channels, but it doesn't actually have channels. And that was just way easier in my opinion, and I would do that again. I don't want to fiddle with the 3 separate pieces of elastic. Like, that's just a nightmare to me. So that is how I constructed these shorts, and I'm sorry I just finished these, so I don't have a picture of me wearing them yet, but just take my word for it that they're absolutely adorable. And I think that they will go with so many things in my closet. And it occurred to me that, like, because this looks like a mini skirt, you get like all of the ease and comfort of wearing shorts, but it looks like a cute little skirt. And I actually kind of want to make more of these. Like, I don't know how many pairs of ruffly shorts I need in my wardrobe, but at least maybe I'll make it again without the ruffle. I just think that they're so cute, and I think they are going to be incredibly comfortable for summer. This fabric, I forgot to mention, is an art gallery rayon that I got from fabric.com, I think back in March or maybe February. And it's been in my stash for a little while because I really like this fabric, and I was waiting for the perfect pattern. And I think this was the perfect pattern. I just really, really love these. And I cannot be happier with how my recreation came out. So I'm looking forward to posting pictures on Instagram and participating in that challenge. And that was the 3rd thing that I finished this week, and that is all of my sewing finishes. So I think I'm just going to finish up this week on a knitting project that I've started. I don't know yet when I'm going to sew next week. I just finished a project and I'm kind of in that middle lull of like, I don't know what to do next, so I'm going to have to figure that out later. But I will share that I cast on a pair of socks. I was just having kind of a down day, and I decided it was time to finally stop hoarding this yarn. This is Cakewalk Yarns. It's a sock yarn in the colorway Mrs. Featherbottom. This dyer has been out of business for, I don't know, a decade or more. And she was actually out of business when I bought this yarn. I had to like stock Ravelry when I was still on Ravelry, and I purchased it through a D-stash. It was really hard to find and get a hold of. And then I've just been hoarding it ever since because it's so pretty. And it's called Mrs. Featherbottom, and I love Arrested Development. But I decided it was finally time to stop hoarding it and just knit it up. So I wanted to kind of keep the integrity of the yarn. I originally was gonna do a pattern, but I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it simple and show them off in simple stockinette socks and just really like show the beauty of the yarn. So I did about 3 inches of 2x2 rib and then just plain stockinette. Here's the other side. You can see that it's just as pretty on both sides. It knits up so beautifully. These are size 0 Knit Pro carbons or Knitter's Pride, I forget, they're the same company, but whatever. Yes, I'm using my carbons 32 inch, and what I'm going to do with this, because I'm just enjoying just knitting in a tube, is I'm going to do the method, I forget what the official name is, but I'm just going to knit one long tube. It's going to be 26 inches long, and when I get to the end, I'll do 3 more inches of rib before I bind off, and then I'll fold it in half, figure out where the center is, and then cut in the middle, and then unravel so that I have 2 long tubes. Then I'll add the toes, and then I will add afterthought heels. Again, there's a name for it. It's like, yeah, I can't remember the name of it. I did not invent this method. I've used the method before, but it's been a long time. And it's one of those things where I haven't used that method in a really long time, and I don't want to get stuck in a rut where I'm just making the same method of sock knitting always, because it's one of those like I want to use and not lose my skills. So by doing the afterthought toe and the afterthought heel, it does kind of exercise some of those muscles that I haven't used in a long time as far as like knitting skills go. So that's why I decided to do it that way. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. I just have a lot more tube left to go. I have to knit this tube to 22 inches and then do the 3 inches of ribbing. So it's going to be like this for a while. Probably the next time you see it, it'll just be a really, really long, skinny, narrow, funny looking tube. So that is my knitting project for the week. And that's going to wrap it up for me this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next time.